All right, so, and as always, when I read something, this is my first time reading it. I don't know what's going to happen. And as a warning from YouTube now giving me fucking warnings, I am not endorsing what I'm reading. We are seeing what it is, and it may be terrible because now I'm on warning with YouTube. So this is for educational purposes. You can't tell I'm reading from academic journals. Really. Like, it's like terrible. Anyway, but here we go. And as always, we read the paper and we review it at the end. So now you've got my disclosure. Bernard Herrmann's Clarinet Quintet, Souvenirs de Voyage. I didn't get a strike. I got a warning. It'll go away basically after the election. I think they're just being overly careful in the election season with a lot of international meddling. So yeah. So I didn't get a strike. I got a warning that will be conveniently up at the beginning of December after all the election stuff is over. But yeah, like it looks like, if I had to guess, I think YouTube is just being extra careful. Anyway, Bernard Herrmann's Clarinet Quintet, Souvenirs de Voyage, opens up with the same melodic line that he used a decade earlier in the beginning of the famous piece Scene de Mort from his score of Hitchcock's Vertigo. Rencoin, what's up? Meddling in the U.S. presidential election. Tell me something I don't know. Yeah, of course, joking. Yeah. Loomis says, would be amazing philosophy if stream somehow led to an FBI visit. Yeah, I mean, I abide by TOS. I do. Like, I'm very, like, I've got... One of the things about the stream is people don't realize how close you can get to TOS just talking about stuff. We read a paper on bombing people in war. You can talk about bombings in the abstract, like historical things, but you can't talk about them in terms of like terrorist stuff if you are like supporting the terrorist acts. So I'm not talking about supporting terrorists here. I'm talking about discussing it. So that's TOS. But we really get close to that line sometimes, and I could see how it could be, if you're not paying close attention, it would look like we were talking about terrorist stuff and maybe even supporting it at a glance. If you look at the content, is how it goes. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, we will talk about the presidential election, but I don't call for violence on anyone. I tell people to vote who you think is the best president of the U.S., stuff like that. Being an emo in Germany isn't really a thing, but there are many goths, and there's a giant goth festival here. That's cool. Shit. You are right, Valpo. How you doing? I hope you're doing well. I need to do that. Copy. Yeah, so now if you type exclamation point paper, the link will pop back up. Yeah, we're just getting going. If FBI visits finds out you're reading Hegel, this person is self-hating. You think they understand Hegel, Rencoin? Yeah. Anne says, yet there are full-on channels that target children for sexual reasons, for money, like Mr. Beast. YouTube loves those big channels. Look at Dr. Disrespect, too. Yeah, but they're not... That's also the problem, is that YouTube has a monopoly on VOD distribution, basically. I mean, Twitch is, of course, the biggest real-time stream distributor, but YouTube is the biggest, by far, video distributor, and so they basically get to do what they want because they don't have to, like, they're not worried about losing any market share. So it's like they get to, in the election season, they're going to crack down on political content, but they're going to let everyone else slide because they're making a lot of money off of it. The sign that you're becoming famous, that you're becoming controversial. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I had a video get a few thousand views a few weeks ago, and so that will raise my profile in whatever YouTube algorithms there are. Yeah. You never know. Yeah, it's possible. FBI visit finds that you're reading show power, this person is self-hating. Yeah, exactly, Valpo. I've never read Žižek before on stream, so I said, you know what, let's do that. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we're talking about what we're starting off, we're talking about a clarinet quintet, beginning to some music, which is getting reused from the beginning of Hitchcock's Vertigo. So they're reusing a score. So, Žižek continues, we are dealing here with a nice case of dislocation. Oh yeah, and happy birthday, Valpo. At least that's what Ara said. That was close to your birthday. Carrying an element of melodic line, in this case from its context, and placing it into a different context in which it is subordinated to a space regulated by a different logic. Yeah, so this is basically misquoting something. Misquoting a musical line, but, misquoting just the same on purpose. Yeah. In our case, the same melodic line is first in vertigo, the opening moment of a movement that inexorably leads towards a romantic crescendo, heavily relying on Wagner's Tristan, while its reprisal in the quintet remains firmly within the pre-Wagnerian space of a theme and its variations. The surprising element here is the regressive direction of the shift. First, a romantic push towards a climactic crescendo, then the step back to a more classical space in which the crescendos are excluded. Okay, so yeah, you take some music line or whatever and you put it in a different context and it looks very different. This happens all the time. Such a notion of dislocation is a key dialectical concept whose proper use enables to dispel some key misunderstandings that haunt Hegel's notion of Aufbauung, sublation. Okay, so let's do a little bit of history here in some very fast Hegel. When you have a problem at hand, there's a way to describe it, and then you have a problem with it, and the way we move past it is we find some way of overcoming it, and that is called sublation. So as Ivan is wont to say, well, you have some issues and then you abstract away from them and you find a way forward. This is actually kind of similar. I'm starting to think that like this sort of science is very Hegelian, actually. Maybe even Bayesian epistemology is Hegelian, because what you do is you find yourself in a situation, you find yourself in a problem in that situation, you have a concept or an abstract of where you are, so some idea, then you find that it doesn't work the way you thought it did, and then you have to overcome it. And that's this is how we proceed, always. And so this is an abstraction for a narrative. It's a narrative abstraction. There is some situation, there's a problem there, and then there's an overcoming, and it's an abstraction from the narrative. And depending on your view of narrative, this can be very important or completely irrelevant. Thanks, you got older and promptly strained your knee, so that tracks. There you go, exactly. See, that's a narrative. Yeah. Luminous says, nice to kind of emo you listen, is pretty heavy with some metal elements. It's different from the bands that were popular on the radio back in the day. Ha ha. Yeah. Sorry about the knee, yeah. You forgot you took off my laser eye Hegel emote. Need it for this moment? Exactly. But it's important that people understand that Hegel isn't insane. When you say Hegel, and I say this overcoming, what's going on, you're abstracting away from narrative and historical narrative specifically. But it's not a crazy idea that you can abstract away from historical narrative. History runs through everything. There's a historical narrative running through everything. You abstract away from the historical narrative. That's why it's philosophy. So you've abstracted from a historical narrative. What happens, this is how Hegel abstracted from historical narrative. That's what's going on. This is not a stupid idea. So Hegel's kind of Bayes, yes. This is the journey you've been on. I was wondering about that. I was thinking about that a little while ago because I've been hearing Ivan talk about it a bit, and then Hegel's been in the background for a long time. So, yeah. Okay, but that's what's going on when I say sublation. It's a technical term, but we've just abstracted from the history, and it just means overcoming the old way of looking at the world in the narrative. All right, let's take a different case from the sphere of decolonization. Rejecting the idea of the Haitian Revolution as the true consummation of the ideals of French Revolution, Jean Casimir argues in his The Haitians, a Decolonial History that, quote, Haiti dislocates rather than consummates the project of modernity. End quote. Casimir's critique is directed at all those, me including, who see in the Haitian Revolution the universalization and radicalization of the French Revolution. Only through its repetition in Haiti does French Revolution really become a world historical event with universal meaning. Yeah, so you can see little Hegelian analysis. We've got the French Revolution, which was the situation, but it wasn't particularly interesting until Haiti did something to it and overcame it, making it into a narrative. So from the French Revolution to the Haitian Revolution, then you've got a historical narrative, because otherwise the French Revolution might have got lost. But like the idea that there was a narrative going from the French Revolution to Haiti is sort of a Hegelian analysis. Now, is this correct? Žižek here is saying, well, this person's criticizing me for saying I have got my narrative wrong. Okay. So, in this sense, Haitian Revolution is the Aufbauung of the French Revolution, the full actualization of its potentials, its repetition at a higher level. Again, yeah, so this is the further abstraction. It's the same thing, but at a higher level, a further level of abstraction. From the standpoint of the predominant post-colonial thought, such a view is all too Eurocentric. Yeah, I mean, this is Hegelian German thought. If Haitian Revolution is reduced to the deployment of the imminent potentials of French Revolution, then to put in Hegelese, again what we're doing here, Hegelese, the French Revolution, a European phenomenon, is the overreaching notion, and the Haitian Revolution remains a subordinate moment of its self-deployment. Yeah, so if you're putting it in this European context, that's unfair, it feels, to the Haitians. Are they just doing something that the Europeans determined many years before? Even if the Haitians were more French than the French themselves, even if they went further and more consequent than the French, they were part of the European dynamic process. Yeah, and so this is why they're getting criticized for colonial thought. They're putting non-Europeans in the European context without basically considering that maybe the Haitians were doing something different. Okay. Dislocation, on the contrary, means that the elements are thoroughly recontextualized, integrated into a new symbolic and social space, which confers on them a new meaning unrelated to the original meaning. One can in no way deduce this new meaning from the original one. Let's take equality, a notion which originates in modern European thought. Although many advocates of equality work to expand this notion also to women, other races, etc., such an expansion remains within the scope of within the Western notion of equality. When a true other, black slaves exemplarily, appropriates equality, this notion is not just expanded but transposed into a different domain which radically affects its functioning. The unease with Black Lives Matter proves this abundantly. Furthermore, is the entire history of Marxism and communist revolutions not a history of dislocations? In spite of Lenin's abundant quotes from Marx, Lenin effectively transposes Marx into a radically different historical situation in which the revolution was executed by a narrow party of professionals and won by addressing non-proletarian issues, land and peace. Yeah, so it's like, really, if you're doing Marx, did they really do Marx, or did they put it in different contexts and then just apply it willy-nilly according to, like, say, the Russian, whatever the Russians wanted to hear about? Mao Zedong did something even more radical. Against Marx and Engels' vision, he moved from workers to farmers in the countryside as the revolutionary force, something unimaginable for Marx and Engels. Again, in each of these two cases, we are not talking about a continuous expansion, but a radical dislocation. No wonder that in both cases, Orthodox Marxists opposed the reorientation. The basic reproach of Mensheviks to Lenin was that, in a non-Marxist way, he wants a revolution before the circumstances for it are ripe. Yeah, so as far as I know, remember that the Marxist revolution is kind of inevitable, and forcing it in this way is sort of like having a Marxist revolution and where you have to like go force it is kind of not Marxist. Coins, what's up? This definitely reminds me of a quote from Poulan Sauce, I don't know who that is, who remarked for something to the effect that Marx is no more responsible for Lenin than Jesus is for Hitler or Francisco Franco. Yeah, you would look. No one in history would have been the exact way they were, except for the people before them. And maybe Lenin would have been very different if not for Marx, but you cannot blame Marx for Lenin. Like, it's a very different person. And the same thing for Hitler or Francisco Franco. I mean, Jesus is 2,000 years ago. So, yeah. And basically, the distances between real and theory, yeah. Exactly. And Anne agrees. So, but again, we are in a Hegelian context here, so we are looking at narratives. And again, the narrative, you can make a narrative where you go from one to the other. Now, can you like deduce it? What's the Like, what's the level of responsibility there? There is a historical responsibility, but that's not what we're talking about here. What you're talking about, I should say. What you're talking about is a direct line of like, did this follow in some sort of social line? And that's weaker. Like, there's no real way to like guarantee Lenin from Marx. Just like reggae cannot be blamed for reggaeton. Yes. That's a good one, Ann. Okay. Continuing. We should also bear in mind that capitalism as such involves a process of continuous dislocation. Capitalism originated in Europe but then gradually expanded into a global economic order, and this expansion was not continuous, it involved radical dislocations. Alright, so he keeps saying this radical dislocation. I don't think it means what he thinks it means. I don't think what he is saying here means a whole lot. It's like, okay, the narrative is broken in some way. So, what's the point then? As opposed to it being a continuous overcoming, he's calling it a radical dislocation. Has he added anything to the conversation here? I don't know. If you just switched out radical dislocation for overcoming, has anything new been said? I'm not sure. Now, of course, the criticism of the Eurocentrism, like as a practice, like or as a narrative for the Haitian Revolution, okay, but was the overcoming of the Haitian Revolution over the French Revolution, was that a radical overcoming, even if you're talking about the narrative, or was it a radical dislocation? I'm not sure he said a whole lot here. I'm just confused as what has been added to the conversation when he is calling this radical dislocation in narrative, and maybe time and space or whatever. Okay. Not only capitalism from the very beginning linked to colonization and the new rise of slavery, but it also changed with the emergence of strong non-European capitalists in countries like Japan, India, and now China. Incidentally, it is interesting to note how the same post-colonial leftists who decry every expansion of equality and democracy as a dislocation and not a continuous development always insist that the capitalist is Eurocentric, attributed to Europe. Even if it appears in China, India, etc., capitalism remains European. And that's a fair criticism if you're just saying capitalism is only European, but like, of course, there are other versions of things. Saying a lot of nothing sounds a lot like modern Žižek, lol, yes. Noob here, what does dislocation mean? We don't know, Atom Fighter. We don't know. I think we're starting to suspect that it doesn't mean anything. He's trying to say that Hegelian narrative does not actually overcome. It is more disjoint, but he has not said how it's been disjoint. If you're going to abstract away from narrative, something has to change when, like, you have a situation and then it's different now. What has changed? Well, Hegel called it Aufgebung, overcoming, or sublation. But what is the difference between that technical term of sublation and what Žižek is now calling a radical dislocation? I mean, what new stuff has he added? Maybe he means something by it here. I don't know. And that might be an interesting question for someone who is more up on what Žižek uses his terms. Lumen says there's a straw man people make of Hegel Marx sometimes that suggests history is just one clean straight line, so I guess he could be responding to that. Perhaps. That would be fair, because he did start off with the Hegel like narrative stuff, and if he's trying to push back on it being as clean, I mean, he said that. I just don't think that's very interesting, but he said that, and like if there is a history there and that you're informing me of, then it is good. Like, this is not a long paper. It is a short paper. And if he's just angry at people making it a too clean narrative coming out of Marx, that's fair. That's an okay point, especially in a short paper. And if this is how people want to, like, hear it, then okay. Then, like, that's fine. I just don't know. Okay. Where was I? Yeah, okay. The underlying premise is clear. When a progressive idea like equality and democracy is expanded into a third world, it involves a radical dislocation and is no longer European, but the bad capitalism remains foreign, European intruder. Yeah, capitalism bad, but when it's like a good thing like equality, then it becomes their equality. When capitalism is bad, then they took on our bad qualities, even though that's very colonialist thinking. This mistake is serious because it misses the key fact that capitalism is actually universal, transcultural, and indifferent towards particular cultures. It is not dislocated from one culture and then appropriated by another. It rather stands for a universal dislocation from cultural space as such. And this is not a bad critique of capitalism, that basically capitalism doesn't care about your culture. It only cares about what it can sell. Dialectic sniff, yeah. And says, well, don't forget that as a Marxist, he does a reading with dialectical materialism in mind. Yeah, that's fair. There's history here that I was saying earlier. I don't know politics stuff. So like there may be more history than I understand. So those dislocations or breaks make sense. Okay, so he's talking about maybe a break in his materialistic narrative, the dialectical materialism. Yeah. Okay. At this point, we can return to the relation between Hegelian sublation and dislocation, the approach which opposes the two, as we've seen with the Casimir apropos Haiti, misses a key feature of Hegelian dialectical process. It reduces subject to a dynamized, what the fuck is that dynamized substance? Okay. Yeah, I don't understand this thing. So, but it misses a key feature of the Hegelian dialectical process. It reduces subject to a dynamized substance. Lumen says, I once did a Žižek imitation on Twitter, and there's now a bunch of people who believe my joke was a real quote. Nice, Luminance. Good job. I mean, that's the fun part about some of this, is like you can just go trigger like the idiots out in the world and they'll run with it, and you get to see what mess you've created in the world. What little bit of chaos have you caused with your joke? That's fun. Yeah. There were actual AI articles citing it. Oh, dear God. Welcome to 2024, where you can make a joke, people will run with it because they're too dumb to realize it, and then it will get reified by artificial intelligence and will now be on the internet forever. And that's why we're going to have a dead internet. You got 3 citations from it on Google Scholar. Oh my God. Like, yeah, seriously. So we're not even going to have a dead internet. We're going to have a dead research community too. 2024, baby. Everything's gone. It's not gone to shit yet. I mean, maybe depending on what you think it is. It may have gone to shit, but we're definitely in some messy times. Okay. The critics dismissed the Hegelian notion of democracy and equality as an all-encompassing substantial entity which gradually actualizes its immanent potentials, passing from one another particular figure but remaining the same ground of the entire process. Okay, so they're just saying, look, the stuff we like, democracy and equality, we think that holds constant no matter what. Tindaris has seen it. Nice. Say the state goes through the stages of Asiatic despotic state, ancient slave-owning democracies, feudal monarchies, modern authoritarian state, etc. But all these are particular formations which emerge as the imminent deployment of the same notion of state. But is this the case? If we remain at this abstract level, we have to add at least 2 points. First, for Hegel, the full consummation of an idea when reality fits its idea always implies the self-negation of this idea. Say, the reality of states never fully fits the state. When this happens, we no longer have a state, but we pass into a religious community. All right, I am not entirely sure what the fuck is going on with this. Like, this is Hegel beyond me. You recently learned that Northern Lion thought it was a real quote and talked about it on stream. Funny. State, power, and socialism, a citation. Oh my God. This is heavily Poulentz's. Poulentz's wrote almost uncannily about this. Okay, maybe he's ripping someone off Renka. I don't know. I'll read it again. Yeah, sure, Ann. Now I got to figure out how to get him to let me come on his stream. Okay. So yeah, let's go back to this Hegelian thing. What exactly is going on? So the critics dismiss the Hegelian notion of democracy and equality as an all-encompassing substantial entity which gradually actualizes its immanent potentials, passing from one another particular figure, but remaining the same ground of the entire process. So I understand that. So Hegel says like there's a certain level of actualization. So democracy will eventually actualize in the world. We're just like struggling to fully realize the way we should be. Then Žižek continues, say the state goes through the stages of Asiatic despotic state, ancient slave-owning democracies, feudal monarchies, modern authoritarian state, etc. But all these are particular formations which emerge as the imminent deployment of the same notion of state. Yeah, so say a country does all sorts of different things over its history. Fine, we grant that. But is this the case? If we remain at this abstract level, we have to add at least 2 points. First, for Hegel, the full consummation of an idea when reality fits its idea always implies the self-negation of this idea itself. Say the reality of states never fully fits the idea of state. When this happens, we no longer have a state, but we pass into a religious community. I don't know what this religious community is a reference to is the problem. I kind of get the other stuff, but look. So say we have some idea of like the way humanity is going. This is why Hegel's an idealist. He thinks humanity is going a certain direction, and we may not know what it is, but it's going in that direction. It's fully actualizing itself. So, but the way the narrative goes is something is never fully itself. It's like it's always contradictory. It's like, okay. But so, like, I don't quite understand what's happening right here. But like, you can also say, look, how could the democracy be self-actualizing if something is never fully a state? How does a state actually become a democracy if it's always contradictory? I don't know. Okay, Rancoin says, well, that's okay. You can write a wall sometimes. Poulantzas was riffing on Deleuze and Foucault for suggesting the state as a Erstat, tolling through history, looking for a more ideal realization. Well, then he's pulling from Hegel, because that's definitely more Hegelian. So they're both pulling from Hegel there. From there, general propositions on the state may be made. Poulantzas says no, to understand the state means looking at the capitalist state in its particular mode of production. Yeah, that's fair. But I think they're both riffing on Hegel in this case. They're both talking about the same stuff. I don't know, when's Poulantzas, anyway, Rancoin, because I don't know when the Poulantzas was writing, and so for all I know, Žižek may have read that, or they're both referencing Hegel, or whatever. Yeah. And says, I think it goes into the idea that democracy requires direct involvement and deliberation. Religion doesn't. In a theocracy, you just obey because God. Yeah, theocracy. That is fair. So, like, if you just think things are going to go into democracy on their own, then you just think there's an arc of religious history that's going to go that way. That's fair. So maybe that's what this religious community is here. You just take it on faith that democracy is going to actualize. Okay. And that would be a fair point, because then you're just overly idealistic, and Žižek could criticize Hegel for being an idealist. I mean, he was an idealist as far as I understand it. And so that actually does make some sense. Rancoin says it was late 70s in the French sphere, and honestly, he probably was indirectly referencing Hegel now that I brought it up. Yeah, I mean, these people knew about, like, this is not so far away that, like, they would, like, the French would know about Hegel. Like, they would know about this stuff at that time, so, yeah. So, okay, so if Žižek is saying you're being overly idealistic if you just take Hegel at face value, I'm with you on that, Žižek. It's just I don't know enough of the background. And thank you for chat and Anne and Rancoin for helping me. Everyone in that period studied Hegel with Koyev, I believe. Yeah, so, yeah. Anne says in a totalitarian or despot type of government, there is no citizen involvement, therefore no freedom. All this goes back to class consciousness. Yeah, yep. So, I think that's kind of what the point of, like, this stuff over here, like what Anne is pointing out, I think, is this stuff over here. It's like, how do you actually make such a narrative in, like, if you're going through all these other stages? Like, are you really making a narrative of democracy, or are you forcing it at that point, the narrative? So yeah. And the necessity to be conscious for there to be a revolution, then a dialectical change of historical state. Yeah, so if the people don't even have any idea about it, then how can they be revolutionizing? Like, that's not what's in their head. So they're not doing the revolution for that reason, at least. So then again, you were forcing a narrative on the people that wasn't there. Okay, I mean, that is making some sense. Okay. Yeah, therefore a fraction of that is necessary. Well, yeah, and so now we're getting closer to what maybe Žižek wants to say, is that there is some more, like, the strong narrative breaks in the way we have to describe what's going on. It can't just be this sort of overcoming from what was before. There's a harder sort of narrative break there. All right. Second, and more important, in a dialectical process, predicate always passes into subject. What was at the beginning a subordinate particular moment of the process asserts itself as subject and retroactively posits its presuppositions as its own moments, predicates. Yeah, so again, when something starts to take over, then all of a sudden, in their eyes, when like a new government takes over, they saw it as unnecessary steps. So when something takes over, then they look at their history with like, well, this is how it had to be. Okay, so again, it is not the same subject which goes from one to another particular figure, remaining the same agent which pulls the strings and controls the entire movement. Yeah, so the individuals are going to define what they call real. But like if you're looking at it from the outside, you can't like impose what you think that reality is onto those people. Okay, what Hegel calls absolute is the very process in which radical reversals happen and a predicate turns into a new subject. Every dialectical passage is thus a form of dislocation. The previous substance is dislocated into a new encompassing universality. It is not the same universality which passes from one to another particular form. In each passage, universality itself is dislocated. It is reduced to a subordinate under a subordinate moment of a new universality. Okay, so now the question is, does Žižek think that the overcoming needs to be treated like a fracture? Like, is it not so narrative? Is it really a stronger break? But then what's the point of the abstract negation and overcoming? Is it just way too abstract? Maybe. Okay, let's take the passage from Money to Capital described by Marx. In pre-capitalist market exchange, money is a mediator of the exchange between producers, which produce in the final result what I sell, what I produce, and buy what I need. With capitalism, okay, so that's in pre-capitalism, it's just a mediator so that you can get your stuff organized. With capitalism, however, money becomes capital, the subject and active agent of the entire process. Yeah, so in capitalism, capital is what's like the most important thing because that's how the world runs. Although from my individual standpoint, I produce and sell things so that I will get another things that I need or desire for my life, with capitalism, the true goal of the entire process is the expanded self-reproduction of capital itself. My needs and their satisfaction are just subordinated moments of capital's self-reproduction. In this sense, social production is radically dislocated, reduced to a subordinate moment of the capital's reproduction. Yeah, so all the stuff we're doing here pays for Amazon and Twitch, which of course is in the big capitalist thing. It's not just me doing stuff because I want to broadcast philosophy. It is a subject, just a moment of Twitch making money for Amazon and Jeff Bezos getting another yacht. Okay, back to Haiti. What further complicates the picture is that the tension between imitating Europe and breaking out of European modernity is inscribed into the very heart of the revolutionary process. Toussaint Louverture, the first leader of Free Haiti, insisted on the equality of all races and rejected any privileging of the blacks. Plus, although he formally abolished slavery, he simultaneously imposed obligatory work. Plantation work had to remain at their posts so that production was going on. Plantation workers had to remain at their posts. The two leaders who came after him, Dessalines and Christophe, enacted the anti-white turn. All non-blacks, with the exception of Poles who supported the revolution, were massacred. Ooh, I didn't know about that. That's mean. But mandatory work remained, so that for ex-slaves, things didn't change a lot. During Christophe's reign, Haiti was divided into two states. Christophe ruled as the emperor of the northern part, and Alexander Pétion the republic in the southern part. While the North turned into a half-feudal authoritarian imitation of a European modern state focused on boosting production and wealth, concentrated in the hands of the ruling black elite, in the Republic in the South, land was distributed to small farmers who survived in a self-subsistent economy with low productivity. Although some commentators celebrate the South as an attempt to develop new communal forms of life as an alternative outside to European modernity, the experiment soon failed. A further paradox to be noted here is that the anti-white shift from the equality of races to black domination, which occurred with the Dessalines, coincided with the rise of authoritarian class structure with the emperor at the top, which imitated the worst European authoritarian modernity. Okay, so I was saying, look, if you're trying to fit Haiti into an easy narrative, that's not how it's going to go. That's just how history is. You can make an easy narrative, but it's always going to be too cut and dry, whatever the easy narrative is. History is messy. Go hang out with Shane McGinnis. Similar paradoxes already discernible in the case of Paraguay. Are already discernible in the case of Paraguay. Before it was destroyed by the Spanish-Portuguese intervention, Paraguay, under the domination of the Jesuit order, which organized indigenous tribes into missions, was not only an early form of communism, but was also much closer to cultural independence than Argentina or Brazil. Jesuits were already printing books in the Guarani language, which is even today spoken by the majority in Paraguay. So if Jesuits were not thrown out, the history of Latin America would take a different turn, with the Aboriginal language becoming one of the official state languages. Throughout modern history, Jesuits were, as a rule, much more progressive than Franciscans, although, or precisely because, Jesuits were organized as dogmatic fanatics, while Franciscans emphasized poverty and spiritual inner life. Even today, Jesuits are the bastion of the Catholic left, while many Franciscans are neo-fascists. Brecht was right to copy Dislocate, Jesuits' sacred propaganda theatrical pieces, in his communist learning plays. Yeah, so there is a history of the religious, the Catholics here. I don't know this stuff. But again, they're saying, look, if you're trying to fit an easy narrative onto these revolutionary processes, again, it's not going to work. Now, is Žižek making up, is he cherry picking stories as he needs them? Maybe. I don't know well enough about the history here. But, I mean, I agree with the position that history is messy, and any easy narrative that's going to say, well, like, it's clearly going from this state to the next state, like, in this sort of way. Like, there's no, like, obvious way anything happens. The Jesuits were the precursors to Catholicism, you thought? I don't know enough history to, like, speak on this. I thought the Jesuits, I mean, I think our current Pope is a Jesuit. Or he's out of the Jesuit part of the Catholic Church. So I don't think, I think they may have, for all I know, they were around before, like, the Protestant Reformation, but I think the Jesuits are, he's Franciscan. Okay, I thought he was a Jesuit. Okay, I did not know that. Hence the name. Oh, well, yeah, Pope Francis. Fair enough. Thank you, Anne. Was the previous Pope a Jesuit? Maybe he was. I don't remember. I thought one of them were. But, like, this is the thing. This is within the Catholic Church. That's all. So I don't think it's precursors. Like, I think these are just, like, sects within the Catholic Church. I mean, they're not, like, you could be Pope. You're going to be Catholic. You're not going to be one of the other things. Losing words now. Okay. There's an important paradox in the distinction between Guarani spoken outside of the missions and the Jesuit Guarani. Jesuits constructed new words in Guarani to translate European notions, while ordinary people incorporated Hispanicisms. Okay, they were founded. Okay, thank you for looking up, and all cost money. Yeah. I mean, that's my crappy understanding of history and religion for you. I just don't know these things, really. Okay, quote, by and large, the Guarani of the Jesuits shied away from the direct phonological loans from Spanish. Instead, the missionaries relied on the agglutinative nature of the language to formulate calque. Oh, I don't know, man. I don't know these words. Calque terms from native morphemes. This process often led to, you know what we're going to do? If you're interested in philosophy of language and someone who understands all these words, you go hang out with Kali Oxenfree. She is off this weekend. I think she'll be back next week, but she's in that last message in the middle. She is a linguistic streamer. Okay. So instead, the missionaries relied on the agglutinative nature of the language to formulate calque terms from native morphemes. This process often led the Jesuits to employ complicated, highly synthetic terms to convey Western concepts. By contrast, the Guarani spoken outside of the missions was characterized by a free, unregulated flow of Hispanicisms. Frequently, Spanish words and phrases were simply incorporated into Guarani with minimal phonological adaptation. I mean, like, you know, when we say something like sushi, we're not making the word sushi in English. It is just sushi, like, or whatever it is. You just use the word from another language because we have no problem saying sushi, like, in terms of, like, the food. Adam says Pope Francis, he's the first one to be a member of the Society of Jesus, the Jesuit order. Okay, so Anne was wrong. Fine. But maybe he was trying to make friends with the Franciscans. Interesting. So I did know something. Okay, a good example of that phenomenon is found in the word communism. The Jesuits, using their agglutinative strategy, rendered this word tuparahava, a calque based on the word tupa, meaning God. In the Paraguayan Guarani, the same word is rendered comunio. We encounter something similar in many of today's languages. The state protects their purity, prohibiting anglicisms, etc. But in the Jesuit Paraguay, foreign colonizers themselves played this role. The whole American continent is a land of syncretism. Yes, we just mix stuff. The point of these remarks is a very simple one: to complicate the standard binary of Eurocentrism versus post-colonial thought. What if the two are inextricably linked? What if European influence is not only an obstacle to decolonization, what if it can help it? When we dream about a post-colonial future, it is crucial that we take into account such paradoxes. Okay. Guarani language Wikipedia. Žižek referenced Wikipedia. Where did Žižek do such a thing? Where's the 2? Right here. Okay, so the idea that they use comunio for communism. Žižek referenced Wikipedia. Okay. So now what we do is we rate the paper. What do we think of Žižek? How do we feel about what Žižek was saying here? And just referencing Wikipedia. Once you become a celebrity, that the rules don't apply to you anymore. This is Žižek in the Journal of Žižek Studies. It's not even him being a celebrity. It's that he's in the study of his own stuff. So it's like beyond celebrity. It's like if you were like the Noger Zero or Nogre studies of Noger and I wrote in that, who could stop me? What was the point of the paper? Well, we don't know. It was Žižek, Ann. He probably wrote this in like an afternoon. Nog turd, yes. So, you have to small n on that. I can fix it later if you don't do it yourself. But thank you for the raid. I mean, not the raid, the review. It all costs money. So yeah, as always, use some of the emotes. They're Better TTV emotes. If you don't see them in your chat, you can see them below. You can install the Better TTV extension to get them. So give me your review. Brain dances if it was fun, Scream for existential artistic drama, Ouroboros for deep ancient ideas, Nog knife slicing and dicing arguments, Nog navel for navel gazing only for academics, Nog turd all style no substance, still poop underneath, and Nog grapes for big claims that shrivel up. And there's the global vote yay and vote nay that you can use, and also my vote meh if you thought it was very meh. Yeah, I'm with you at all costs. I think we're gonna have to go with a little bit of a turd. I'm not entirely sure what the fuck's going on with Žižek. And if the whole point was that, yeah, Hegel was an idealist, no shit, Sherlock. Anne liked it. Anne thought it was fun. So that was good. She gave it a meh and a navel gazing. Lumen says he's defending the Hegel from post-colonialists who call him Eurocentric, but even though he's right that Hegel is sometimes strawmanned, I feel like he's strawmanning decolonialism here. So probably go with the grapes and the meh on this one. Yeah, see, as Luminen says, if you understand the sort of discussion here, he's in a discussion and you can be like, Hegel is being, yeah, you can complicate the story on Hegel. He's a bit of an idealist, but you can make it work. Okay, that's fair. Anne says didn't go anywhere though. A lot of theoretical arguments, but didn't know about what. Fair. It's yeah. Yeah, so yeah, it's like a turd and a meh. Yeah, maybe I'll give it a vote meh also. I don't think this was was it really that bad? I don't know. Maybe I'll give it 2 vote mess. So it's I don't think it was that bad. But then again, it's just it's a short article. It's not that bad. You're still lost on the radical dislocation. What was radically dislocated? Okay, so that was Žižek dressing up the Hegel. So what Luminous was saying that he's defending Hegel from other people, but in the way that Žižek is trying to defend Hegel is to build up Hegel's notion of overcoming. And so it's not just a simple narrative, it can include a radical break. And so that's kind of what's happening here. It was just hyperbole to make Hegel sound less straightforward. And so in doing so, allowed Hegel to be applied to wider situations. Now, is this a good idea? I don't know. It wasn't bad, just aimless. Yeah, well, that's why I gave it the turd. It's like, it's Žižek sort of like talking about stuff, but there's nothing going on in some sense. So it's like I'm gonna give it like a few mez, but like, is there anything like to it? I don't know. It's like I don't want to say it's like terrible either. I don't think it was terrible. If like under our understanding of what's going on here, and I admit I'm not an expert here, but we have people who understand better in chat. Like, it's not the worst thing ever. It's like Žižek is trying to like boost a certain concept or push a certain concept in Hegel in a way to defend Hegel from decolonialist analysis or the decolonialist attacks. So yeah. Okay. But yeah. Anyone else want to get their reviews in? Let me know, get it in now. We got a minute. I'm trying to think. Do I just want to give it 2 mez and a nog turd? I feel like I should give it a little bit of fun, maybe. Yeah, maybe I'll give it a brain dance. I mean, I don't hate this. Like, I want to give it like a little bit of credit here. Yeah, I'll throw a vote yay. No, I don't want to throw a vote yay on it. Just the 2 mez. I have to fix my rating system anyway. Yeah. Anyway. Zuman says, I think Žižek older work was serious philosophy, but these days he's more focused on being a celebrity comedian than doing serious philosophical work. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, one of the criticisms I heard of analytic philosophers is basically they become textbook writers. So like they may have done some really good, cool work when they were younger, but now when they got older, they just write textbooks and make money. And like this is what happens. It's hard to do good philosophy. It takes a lot of work and effort. And sometimes you get older, you just want to like chill out and like, you might still be doing good work, but you don't want to be like radical or anything. It's just like it takes too much time and effort to like really it takes effort to like do like radical philosophy. You have to like work very hard and see what everyone said and like do something different. So yeah, like that's fair. It's like you don't have to be doing like crazy good work all your whole life. You can take a break at times. So it's like, yeah.